Anger shines through me. Anger shines through me. I'm a burning bush. My rage is a cloud of flame. My rage is a cloud of flame in which I walk seeking justice like a precipice. How the streets of the Iron City flicker, and the dirty air fumes. Anger storms between me and things, transfiguring. A good anger acted upon is as beautiful as lightning, swift with power. A good anger swallowed, clots the blood to slime.
On those provocative words, let's rise and sing this opening hymn. So welcome to the Unitarian Church of Baton Rouge. My name is Nathan. I'm one of your ministers. There is a lot to announce, and there's a rule that a congregation can only hear 3 things, and I haven't figured out how to do this. So I'm hoping by you knowing that I can say more than 3 things. And that doesn't count as one of the 3. So, gosh, where to start? Let's start with the simplest. This is Holy Week. Today is Palm Sunday. Thursday night is our annual Tenebrae service. That is the service where we think about and talk about, basically we retell the story of Jesus' death. We're also going to have communion at that service. And if you have never been, it starts at 7 o'clock on Thursday. It can be a little, and online people, we're going to stream it. It's a little weird. Like it ends in darkness. Like all the lights are off, the sun is set, all the candles have been extinguished. And it's just quiet, right? So we don't wrap things up. So it may feel a little weird, but it is an experience worth coming to. And then Sunday morning will be Easter Sunday, and we may expect some people here. So I will tell you not to park there, but if you wanted to park other places and free up space, you are more than welcome to. And there's going to be an Easter egg hunt during middle hour, too. There will be no rain, because I have the power over that. All right, now it gets weird. All right. Well, middle hour is easy. During middle hour, we're going to have all of the regular children and youth Sunday school, but also we are going to have a discussion of our theological house, which is a model for describing Unitarian Universalism for those who struggled to articulate it, and that's going to be in room 6, I believe. And then the social justice team subcommittee on voting is going to be in room 7. Are you all good with the announcement so far? I have another thing to say about voting, but first, if you have an electric vehicle, the climate justice team would like to hear from you, and there's a little table out there. Back to the voting. This has never happened in the history of Unitarian Universalism, so I'm going to name it and then say I don't know what to do with it. Wait, we're not going to do that one yet. We're doing a fundraiser for birdhouses. What we're doing is asking people to buy the birdhouses, make a donation to get a birdhouse, decorate it, give it back to the church, and then we're going to auction these off. Good? Leslie, do you want to do some of the announcements because I have so many? Sure. Okay, but I didn't tell you what they are. Okay. The art piece in the sanctuary. We have a new roof, but part of the roof is flat. And when you have a flat roof, you have to have a drain to get the water off. And sometimes things can get stuck in the drain. And things got stuck in the drain. And it leaked last week, which is why streaming people, you had such a weird service last week. And it leaked all in the server room where our streaming stuff is. Anyway, we cleaned it up, did all of this, and then it leaked again. And so they put a tube. So all this is to say, we are working with a roofer. We are wrangling with our insurance company who claims that it's because of something that would mean a $75,000 deductible, and we're saying that's not true. So we've decided to install some modern art in the narthex, and it will be gone soon, but please leave it be. And please make adjustments as we're trying to figure out what on earth this is going to be. This is part of the deal of living in a building that exists in weather like Louisiana's. All the people who need to know anything are on it. Oh, gosh, I can't even get to the voting thing yet. All right, can you put up the slide? This is 10 minutes in, and we haven't even... Our church was named by Planned Parenthood as their Second Century Award winner. In other words, every year they picked you. They pick someone every year as their recipient, and they reached out to us a few months ago and said, can we honor your church for all of the reproductive justice work you've done over the years? And we said, I don't know how a church can accept an award, but the board discussed it. So what you need to know is there is a pre-reception on March 27th. And if you get the emails, or if you don't, come talk to me. And there's a way you can register for that. So come to that, or there's an actual gala on April 4th. But our church is being honored. So I've never heard of that happening before, but it has, and that is us. So we're going to talk about it. So the 27th is this week. And then next week we'll re-announce the gala on Easter. Does that make sense? Yes. Now to the weird thing. Thank you, Ed, for putting that up. Now for the weird thing I don't know how to describe. Never in the history of Unitarian Universalism has a minister in Louisiana served for 36 years, retired, been named minister emeritus, and then run for school board. This church will never endorse a candidate, period, even if they're the minister emeritus. So for those who don't follow closely all of the inner workings of District 8 school board races, he did lose the race, but by 500 votes. And I believe $200,000 from outside of the state came in to fund not him. So that's about $69 a person. I did the math per vote. I'm not saying they bought vote. I'm saying they put a lot of money into flyers and stuff. And if it makes things a lot less awkward for me because I don't want to have to hold my colleague and your former minister accountable for being an elected official. But I just wanted to name that because I don't know how to do that. So that's what has happened. Are you good with all of those announcements? Are we okay? All right, let's go back. Oh, and I'll put the birdhouse back there. All right, now let's commence with the service.
Today's lesson comes from Mark, the 11th chapter, the 1st through 11th verses. As they approached Jerusalem and came to Bethphage and Bethany at the Mount of Olives, Jesus sent 2 of his disciples, saying to them, "Go to the village ahead of you, and just as you enter it, you will find a colt tied there, which no one has ever ridden. Untie it and bring it here. If anyone asks you, 'Why are you doing this?' say, 'The Lord needs it and will send it back here shortly.'" They went and found a colt outside in the street, tied at a doorway. As they untied it, some people standing there asked, "What are you doing untying that colt?" They answered as Jesus had told them to, and the people let them go. When they brought the colt to Jesus and threw their cloaks over it, he sat on it. Many people spread their cloaks on the road, while others spread branches they had cut in the fields. Those who went ahead and those who followed shouted, "Hosanna! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the coming kingdom of our father David. Hosanna in the highest heaven." Jesus entered Jerusalem and went into the temple courts. He looked around at everything, but since it was already late, he went out to Bethany with the 12.
And I would invite you into our morning's prayer and a moment of prayer and reflection. The God that we know when we see love and hope and faith and justice and even anger, be with us on this day. And hold those gathered here and those in the city and the state and the country and the world. And help us to all hold whatever anger it is that we are feeling. And help us to channel it into ways that are good for the world, that make the world more loving and kind. And help us to remember on this day that is the combination of Palm Sunday and Ramadan and Purim and all of these other holy days that come together, celebrated by people who wish for a world to be more peaceful and more just. And may the hearts melt on those who are trying to pull us back into a more violent or a more regressive time. And help us to be grateful for the rebirth and the coming of spring. And for those for whom they thought the world would be less painful, maybe the depression would have gone away as winter went away and it's still here, know that you are loved and you are held, and that you will be okay. Hold all of us who are longing for a better world, who want to be okay, who want to be healthy, who want to be happy. All those who are grieving for someone that we've lost. May we know love. May you know peace. Amen. This ritual we have is open to everybody, visitor and member alike. Online, type it right into the chat. We have a chalice here and stones. We'll invite those who wish to come forward either along the west or the east wall. Watch out, there's a fan along the east wall because we're trying to dry the carpet from the aforementioned thing. So just be careful as you go this way. But take a stone, let it represent whatever's on your heart today, whatever's on your mind, and place it in the chalice bowl. Now invite those who wish to come forward as we place stones. And we say together, with hope to make this a better world, we light this flame. Its light is the symbol of the power of love.
From all that dwell below the skies, let songs of hope and faith arise. Let peace, goodwill on earth be sung, through every land, by every tongue.
So as I had mentioned earlier in that slog of announcements, welcome to Palm Sunday at the Unitarian Church of Baton Rouge. At the end of this, or towards the end of the service, we're going to flip that table right there. I'm telling you now because watching someone express an act that may seem violent or angry can be unsettling. And I will warn you a few times that someone will flip that table at the end of the service. And then we're actually going to write down some of the things that make you angry, and I'm going to read some of them, put them on the table, and then I'm going to flip the table. So what we're doing today, this is Palm Sunday, and Palm Sunday is kind of a good day to deal with anger. This is probably the third year we've done this, second year we're flipping the table. So let me fill in the liturgical backstory real quick. This is going to take a minute, so just stick with me. So remember that Unitarian Universalism is the merger of two different religions. One of them is Unitarianism, which comes out of white New England, and it comes out of the idea that reason and doubt made your faith stronger. It came out of the belief in one God, not three, and it goes all the way back to the Council of Nicaea in 325, when they were actually voting on whether or not Jesus was of the same substance of God or similar substance, which is not super interesting, maybe, unless you've went to seminary for this. But if you really dig into it, the difference between, I think it's actually same and similar. Well, what's really interesting is it's basically saying, was Jesus divinely inspired, or was Jesus a human that all of us have access to that same level of divinity? Universalism also comes out of white New England, but while the Unitarians were the sort of status quo power players, people with the money in New England, the Universalists were a little more of the emotional, excitable, rural people. Universalists always had this idea that a loving God would never punish people forever for being human. That to prove God angry or vengeful would to prove God irrelevant, and they did not believe you should ever prove God irrelevant, so you cannot have an angry, punishing God. Does that make sense? All right. Both of these religions come out of the Congregationalist movement, which is a religious movement that says how we practice our belief is at the center rather than requiring us to have a specific belief. Which is a long way to say that this religion comes out of the merger of two different Christian religions. And there is no belief requirement in this church. So what I mean by that is this church does not require you, it's a creedless religion. It does not require a belief. But we're not even at the theme yet. I'm still explaining how we got there. So the religion comes out of Christianity. The riverbed of this church is the Christian church. But each of you and your individual beliefs in a church with no belief requirement is a drop of water in the river that shapes where it goes. Does that make sense? Let me try it again. So this religion comes out of the merger of two different Christian religions that are no longer Christian. So I think you get it, right? Good, okay. Thank you, yes. And here's also where we are liturgically. We started the year kind of in the Advent Christmas area, and then we did Carnival, and then after Carnival we had Ash Wednesday, and then we shifted into Lent. And Lent is the time where we contemplate some of the harder things in life. It's supposed to mirror Jesus' time in the desert. Also, I want to point out there's also a difference. Jesus was the name given to him. Christ was the title given later. So I usually say that this church talks more about Jesus, the person, than Christ, the title. Does that make sense? All right. I don't know why I always ask if it makes sense, because I can't change what I've written. Maybe I'll know in the future. So Jesus is in the desert. He's tempted by the devil. But this is also where he prepared to do his ministry and eventually walk into Jerusalem and call out the oppressive nature of the city and the faith leaders. And he actually came in there to mock those in power. The whole season of Lent, we as a church decided we would talk about death ad nauseum. We did all kinds of logistics of it, and the spiritual side and the human side and the afterlife and all kinds of stuff, and we are done. You've made it through. We're not going to talk about death for a little while, I hope. So today is the story of Jesus entering Jerusalem. And for those who are not fully aware of it, he walks in, he looks around. What he sees makes him so angry, he leaves town. And then he goes and he curses a fig tree because it doesn't have figs, because it's not the time for it to have figs. But he curses the tree, goes to sleep, and the next day he comes in and he overturns the tables that the merchants are selling at the temple. So what he saw when he entered Jerusalem, back in the day, if you sinned, you needed to make a sacrifice sort of from your own self or your own estate or your own animals. You needed to sacrifice something that you would work to help raise, to help make amends for what you had done wrong. But some high-minded entrepreneurs decided instead of this being a ritualistic practice, a symbolic practice, something intended to make you more penitent and reflective, they took it as a concrete practice. They realized that they could sell you at a premium price the animals to sacrifice, and if you had enough money, you didn't have to do any of the penance. You could just go, pay money, and you could be good with God. The translation for today is those who are looking to make a profit found a way to turn religion from the institution that can make the world better by making you in right relationship with that which is holy and turning it into something concrete, something that we can manipulate and change and make a profit off of. And they wouldn't have to do their religious work to make the world better. Jesus enters, he gets so angry, he flips over the tables, which we're going to do a little later. And according to 3 of the Gospels, this is when those in power decided to kill him. This Thursday night, we'll do our annual Tenebrae service where we will tell the story of that. We will not tell it as the fulfillment of prophecy or as something that was predestined. We will simply read you the story in the Scripture. And it's the time for us to reflect on our own mortality and our own disappointment with the state of the world. And in this church, we don't teach that Jesus was killed. We teach that Jesus was killed by the state, executed through cruel means, which we may recognize more and more now as our legislature is trying to find new cruel ways to kill people. All because he dared to say the world could be better and that those in power needed to step away because they were putting tradition and status quo ahead of the love of people and the love of God. Then on Easter Sunday, we'll celebrate the fact that death cannot kill love or a vision of a better world. That was a lot that I just crammed there. Now we're going to switch into today's theme, which is anger. We tend to forget or whitewash or whatever you want the fact that Jesus was really angry a lot. I had pulled up all of the times. I thought he had said idiot, but he didn't. He said hypocrite a bunch, and I had a whole section I was going to put in here for all of the times he called different people hypocrites, but I left it out just for sake of time. But we'll talk a little more about anger in a minute, because there's more Jesus orientation we have to do to get us through this kind of Jesus-y part of the next 7 days. So there are 4 Gospels that tell the story of Jesus. Each of them has sort of a different perspective on Jesus, and you're going to hear from 3 of them, the 3 oldest and closest to original source that we know of. Mark is the oldest, and then Matthew and Luke. And I put all 3 of the stories of Jesus overturning the table so you can listen for the differences in how they tell them. So Mark is the oldest of the Gospels. He depicts Jesus as the most human, the most flawed, the most indignant about his station in life. That's the one where Jesus ends feeling forsaken by God. Matthew's gospel was written by someone who specialized in the Hebrew Scriptures, so he intentionally changed just enough of the words to make sure that the story fulfills some of the like 500 prophecies in the Hebrew Scriptures. And then Luke, who is much more interested in sort of the working people, a just world, all of that. An anger swallowed clots the blood to slime. A good anger acted upon can be as beautiful as lightning. As we start to think about anger, ushers, I figured out what happened. I had asked them to hand out these papers, but I forgot to give them the papers. And then 10 minutes after people started coming, I remembered and I gave them new papers. But these are the original ones I forgot to give you. If you did not get a paper or you need a pen, please raise your hand. So what I'm going to ask you to do is we're going to have a few readings, and then we're going to have a hymn. And I want you to write down whatever you're angry about. Think about the injustices you see in the world. These could be petty angers. So like, I hate it when people scrape their fork across their teeth. Oh, it makes me nuts. Like, you could write that, actually. That one goes there, petty angers. There could be kind of patterned angers. So a pattern that you see, like for me, I get angry over and over that I wind up seeing sort of the bad in the world and I fall back into cynicism over and over. So that anger is going on the table. You can have an anger that is unjustified. And what I mean by that is, do you know, all right, so if there's a merger and one guy is just not merging in and sneaks all the way up to the front, who here gets really angry at that guy? Come on. But here's the thing about an unjustified anger. The merger is actually designed for you to go all the way up to the front and zipper in. It's actually better for traffic if you let them in way at the front rather than all getting in line way at the back. Doesn't matter, makes me angry. So you can have unjustified angers if you want to write them down. And then there is also like the righteous anger at a system, the systems in this world that are keeping you or other people from being your full selves. Anger at the cynicism or indifference or hopelessness or outright racism and misogyny and xenophobia and homophobia. All those righteous angers at the world as it is now. The people who are trying to pull us back to the way we used to be or could have been or something like that. Those are all of the righteous angers you're welcome to write down if you want. I have a few of those too. So what we're going to do is as you write those down, you're going to hear from the Gospel of Mark. We're going to sing a hymn, hear from the Gospel of Matthew. And then during the offering, we're going to collect those. I am going to read some of them, not all, both for timing and also because some of you are going to write things down that I don't want to say out loud. Which means you have permission to write a bunch of weird stuff that makes you angry, but you don't, well, I might read them. But I'm not going to read a lot of the real political partisan stuff and maybe some of the things that might be upsetting for people. But write them down, and we're going to put them all on the table, and we're going to flip them at the end. Good? All right.
Jesus entered Jerusalem and went into the temple courts. He looked around at everything, but since it was already late, he went out to Bethany with the 12. The next day, as they were leaving Bethany, Jesus was hungry. Seeing in the distance a fig tree and leaf, he went to find out if it had any fruit. When he reached it, he found nothing but leaves, because it was not the season for figs. Then he said to the tree, "May no one ever eat fruit from you again." And his disciples heard him say it. On reaching Jerusalem, Jesus entered the temple courts and began driving out those who were buying and selling there. He overturned the tables of the money changers and the benches of those selling doves and would not allow anyone to carry merchandise through the temple courts. And as he taught them, he said, "Is it not written, my house will be called a house of prayer for all nations? But you have made it a den of robbers." The chief priests And the teachers of law heard this and began looking for a way to kill him, for they feared him, because the whole crowd was amazed at his teaching. When evening came, Jesus and his disciples went out of the city. In the morning, as they went along, they saw the fig tree withered from the roots. Peter remembered and said to Jesus, "Rabbi, look, the fig tree you cursed has withered." "Have faith in God," Jesus answered. "Truly I tell you, if anyone says to this mountain, 'Go, throw yourself into the sea,' and does not doubt in their heart, but believes that what they say will happen, it will be done for them. Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. And when you stand praying, if you hold anything against anyone, forgive them, so that your parent in heaven may forgive you your sins."
Let's rise for this next hymn.
Hosanna in the highest, our eager hearts acclaim the prophet of the kingdom who bears Messiah's name. O bold, O foolish peasants who deemed that he should reign, the temple and the palace look down on high disdain. Long ages dim the message, and custom has sufficed for merchants and for princes to bow and own him Christ. But when another spirit arises from the plain, the courts of power tremble and crucify again. O first of many prophets who come from simple folk to free us from our bondage, to break oppression's yoke, restore the minds to wisdom, make known the life, the way that leads through love and justice unto the peace-crowned day.
Jesus entered the temple courts and drove out all who were buying and selling there. He overturned the tables of money changers and the benches of those selling doves. "It is written," he said to them, "My house will be called a house of prayer, but you are making it a den of robbers." The blind and the lame came to him at the temple, and he healed them. But when the chief priests and the teachers of the law saw the wonderful things he did, and the children shouting in the temple courts, "Hosanna to the Son of David," they were indignant. "Do you hear what these children are saying?" they asked him. "Yes," replied Jesus. "Have you ever read, from the lips of children and infants, you, Lord, have called forth your praise?" And he left them and went out of the city to Bethany, where he spent the night.
So I was actually very proud of myself, because we're at the offering, that I had intentionally put a reading before the offering so I wouldn't have to script our way into the offering. Because I wanted to talk both about this, which won't be complicated, but also about the fact that I'm going to ask for many of you to put the church in your will. And then I heard the reading about how we have turned the church into a den of robbers. And I don't know what to do with that, except to say
Except to say, I would love for this to be a filthy rich church that has so much money that a prophet will come in and overturn the tables. And most Unitarian Universalist churches our size have an endowment of about $700,000 or something like that. Our endowment is $35,000, which in the scope of big religious corruption where people are using religion to sort of amass wealth and amass power and sort of all of that, we don't have that money. In fact, we're trying to negotiate with the insurance because of the modern art piece. So bearing in mind the abject hypocrisy of having not 2, but 3 readings about how we should not use the church for profit, combined with the fact that for us to actually be able to have a church that is functional and be able to do the ministries that it needs to do. I cannot tell you how much of our money is held up right now in just maintenance of the building, which keeps us from sort of being able to do more of the programming and outreach that we would love to do. And if people put the church in their will, then we would have a sort of long-term way to do that. Are you all done with my hypocrisy for a minute? Good, okay. So this week and next week, the whole month of March, we are sharing our offering with the community fridge at the Red Shoes. So half of what you give, this is not about the will thing, that's a different thing. I just wanted to name that again in the most awkward way I could have ever done it. But all of the offering plate that comes in, half is going to go to the church and half is going to go to the Red Shoes specifically for their community fridge, which is just a fridge that's outside. I mean, it's got more infrastructure around it, but it's so that people can put food in it, and anyone who needs food can just go to that fridge and open the door and get food. If you would like to put your own food, they ask that you label it, and anything that could attract varmints, put in the actual fridge and don't put it on the shelf part. Like canned stuff is fine on the shelf. Good? Good. I will ask you to give very generously as this morning's... and ushers, can you also pick up separately the things that make people angry and then give them to Leslie, because Leslie has between now and the flipping of the table part to sort them. So if you could give them both, if you are making an offering, give them that, but also give them your anger card, I guess is what we're calling it. Well, now the ushers come forward as this morning's offering is gratefully given and received. Would the ushers bring the anger forward? Online people, I know I didn't make a way for you to do it, so here's what I'm going to ask. If you have already been doing it, type it into the chat. If you have not, well, how am I going to read the ones from the internet? Type it into the chat and pretend I read them, please. Discuss amongst yourselves. All right. Logistics are out of the way. We can go a little more into the anger part. When I moved to Baton Rouge, so many things about this city made me angry. The lack of sidewalks made me angry. And more specifically, the implication that people didn't need a way to walk around this city. And that this assumption that the city was somehow never going to need to grow enough to accommodate people who didn't have access to a car. So that always made me angry. I was angry about the fact that when I moved here, there were 3 hospitals that could have served people in the black community, and 2 of them decided to move far, far away to very deep in the white community, and that flooded the last hospital so much they had to shut down their ER, which has since reopened, but I was really angry about that for a while. I've got a list of like 80 of these like really, really frustrating things, which all sort of synthesize back to this idea that somehow Baton Rouge has this weird lack of self-esteem. Like somehow we don't deserve to be the city that we actually are or could be. And one of the strangest manifestations of it is if you look at the professional class of working black people in this city and the amount of almost white picket fence suburban neighborhoods that black people live in, if the city would stop being so negligent and assertively bad to them, the city could actually be like a black utopia for people from all over the country to move, but we're just not able to get there. I've got lists and lists and lists of these things, but what happened to me over the years is that the anger didn't become sustainable to uphold. And so me talking about the things that needed to get fixed out of the city that I love, it just couldn't hold up. And over time, they calcified, and while they're still there, it's become just not possible to feel perpetually angry about all of this stuff. And it was actually refreshing when Kathy joined the staff, and then when all 3 of the interims came and when Reverend Chris joined, that each of them saw new things that really made them angry, and it sort of refreshed my own anger. So as I said, today is all about anger because I think articulating an anger, letting it live, letting it strike like lightning, that is how the world could get better. And I've given our worship associate, actually, let me just read the poem so you can keep sorting. Is that good? Okay. She's sorting through all of them right now. Let's make this liturgical.
I'll shift over to here into the reading thing. The poem starts with a quote from March Piercy, which says, "A good anger swallowed clots the blood to slime." But what is to be done with it, this anger that dare not be swallowed? Should it be diluted with denial, cooled with indifference? Should it be sweetened with good intentions, softened with lies? Should it be spewed out red hot over searing tongues, scorching the guilty and innocent alike? What's to be done with this anger that dare not be swallowed? Don't dilute it, deny it, or cool it. Don't sweeten it or soften it. But pause for a moment. Could you hold it before your eyes? Examine it with your heart and mind. Could you hold it, then touch it to your belly, that place where your soul rests? Could you let it enter there, knowing it is part of you, that needs to be treated kindly, that needs to be listened to, that needs to be honored? For it has the power to save you, to save us all. Right where you're seated, let's do this next hymn.
Caritas, et et amor, ubi caritas Deus ibi est.
I promise I'm texting for good reason, and you'll find out in a minute. And because you're good old Unitarian Universalists, and you want to know what you just sang, or do you all know what it says? Everyone here is fluent in Latin? Good. Oh, come on. Where there's charity and love, where charity and love are, God is there also. This is the point of the sermon where I name my locations, and those of which allow me to be angry. I'm relatively straight, relatively cis. I trace my heritage to many of the groups that eventually this country has decided to declare white. You can pick almost any group in this country, women, especially black women, black people in general, gay people, trans people, immigrants. Any of them are not allowed to be as angry as I'm allowed to be. One of the ways we perpetuate this weird divide this country has invented is to make sure that there are those of us who are white and those of us who are black, and the only way for anyone who is not black to be considered white is to not be angry at the system, to not see it. Let the immigrants come in calm and polite and be the good immigrants who do not disturb the status quo. Anger is not allowed in this system. We are trained to be afraid of anger, which is why I'm giving you so many warnings about turning over the table. Because that is how you stay safe in this country from what this country will and has done to black people. Because we do not talk about healthy anger, men are expected to swallow many of their emotions. They're not given permission to process or to feel them. And so then, because of the socialization, and I'm witnessing this as I'm seeing children grow up, because of this gross socialization, it makes it not safe for men to be touched or to express themselves. This anger that clots the blood, it shows up in weird and dangerous places. So I also recognize not only are women and basically any non-men and non-white men not allowed to be angry, but because we don't allow for healthy places for anger to go, many people are afraid of anger, and specifically white men who are angry. Is that too much for Palm? Is where we say all the hard stuff. Are y'all good? All right. Whatever the feeling that you are feeling, it is okay to feel it. The problem is how you act on it. And if you deny that feeling, if you pretend it isn't there, it's still there and it's going to find a way out. So it is healthier for you and for us to find a productive way to let those feelings manifest. The thing that got Jesus killed was the fact that he was tapped into his anger. He was not willing to sit by and let the status quo or oppression of the marginalized continue to exist. He would not stand by while people made a profit off of faith. He would not stand by where people used his religion to hurt others. Also, I want to pause here and say a lot of people Jesus was Jewish and he was not necessarily trying to make a new religion. So people take a lot of opportunities for anti-Semitism right here, so I want to just pause and name that. There are so many religions here that are intentionally using Scripture, intentionally using the message of Jesus, intentionally manipulating the words to give permission to chemical plants to poison more people, to give permission to new laws that will make it less safe for gay and trans people. I've got a list of like hundreds of these that I can't get through. But for much of Louisiana, the goal of using the story of Jesus is not wholeness. The goal right now of many religions is to shame people for being who God made them to be. Jesus saw this, well, not specifically this, but basically this, happening 2,000 years ago. He saw people taking religion literally rather than seriously. He saw religion as a tool of empire and of oppression and of the state, and he could take it no more, and so he flipped the table. And remember, he was so angry at what he saw, he cursed a tree for no good reason. I mean, there's probably like allegorical reasons, but he just got so angry, he just yelled at a tree and it died. So now this is a part of the service where I'm going to read some of the things that Leslie has done. And also, the internet figured it out. The person in our sound booth has been texting with the moderator of the chat, and so I've actually got some things written down here that people have written in. But here's where it's going to get weird. After I read these, and can you put the rest on the table? We have read these and maybe don't read these. Yeah. And I'm not going to read all of these. But here's where it gets weird. This is going to take a while, so you're good. I'm not going to flip the table myself because then I'm Jesus. And I don't think the minister needs to be Jesus. And I was thinking in my head, how could I do this over and over? And then I haven't fully theologically reflected on this yet. But is there an angry child or a parent who is willing to watch their child flip a table? I will be standing there. Okay? Not yet. We have our child flipper over here. When I start reading these, just come on up and sit with Leslie, and then we'll have you flip a table. All right. No, not yet. I'm going to flip the table. You have to read it. All right, let's do the internet ones first. Not being able to help someone when they won't accept it. Litter and the people who throw trash away on the ground. This city's terrible infrastructure. People eating junk food and not exercising. If someone hits me. Loud mufflers. People who only want nice things for themselves and people who like them, and people like them. Systemic racism and the poverty that results from it. Loud chewing. When I get bitten. Money in politics. The differentiation of powerless people. Motorists who don't signal turns. That's a Louisiana one. Government controlled by special interest and working for the few instead of the many. Hypocrisy, dishonesty, large pickup trucks, drivers on cell phones, nail picking, annoyed but not angry. People who say they don't have the time, condescension, nepotism, lack of resources, liars, thieves, murderers, people who are disrespectful of other ideas and feelings, people who love to talk but refuse to listen, leaf blowers, deliberately lard cars and trucks, speeders, students who cheat, cat owners who let their cats outside, people who feed semi-feral cats, injustice, hypocrisy, people who don't respect boundaries, people who manipulate others, stereotypes. I'm not even going to get to the ones that were not in the not read, so there's still some read, but I'm going to put them here. So here's how this is going to work. Come stand over here. I'm going to not narrate this.
When he came near the place where the road goes down the Mount of Olives, the whole crowd of disciples began joyfully to praise God in loud voices for all the miracles they had seen. Blessed is the King who comes in the name of the Lord. Peace in heaven and glory in the highest. Some of the Pharisees in the crowd said to Jesus, "Teacher, rebuke your disciples." "I tell you," he replied, "if they keep quiet, the stones will cry out." As he approached Jerusalem and saw the city, he wept over it and said, Even you, had only known on this day what would bring you peace, but now it is hidden from your eyes. The days will come upon you when your enemies will build an embankment against you and encircle you and hem you in on every side. They will dash you to the ground, you and the children within your walls. They will not leave one stone on another, because you did not recognize the time of God's coming to you. When Jesus entered the temple courts, he began to drive out those who were selling. "It is written," he said to them, "My house will be a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of robbers." Every day he was teaching at the temple, but the chief priests, the teachers of the law, and the leaders among the people were trying to kill him. Yet they could not find any way to do it, because all the people hung on his words.
If you keep quiet, the stones will cry out. I was talking with a colleague who's from Louisiana about a sermon that she's going to be preaching to a national audience soon. In it, she made a list of some of the things that our legislature was passing. She talked about, did you know that troops are being deployed to New Orleans, like state troopers, because of the crime there, and if you get arrested by a state trooper, you don't get tried by your peers, you get tried by the state troopers, or something like that. I don't exactly understand what happens. She talked about the book bannings and the bathroom bills and the increased permission to chemical plants, and the list just went on and on and on and on. And there were like 10 of them, and it was just like deadening. And my advice was, they don't need to hear all of this. Like, they already know Louisiana's struggling. They just need to hear 2 or 3 so they get the idea. But another person who listened to the sermon, she disagreed with me. She said they need to know how many things are going on right now in Louisiana and how hard it is. Tuesday, Together Baton Rouge gathered in our sanctuary, 250 people who got together from various religions and secular backgrounds, all to demand a state that is healthy and safe and clean. The old Universalists said that none are saved until all are saved. It is okay for you to walk into a city, to look around, to see everything that is not good enough, where people are using religion to hurt each other, where people are using their power to keep and hold more power. It is okay for you to notice that white legislators have just gone out of their way to pass laws that will disproportionately affect black Louisianians. And black people almost universally voted against it, black legislators. It is okay for you to notice these things. It is okay for you to notice how much of a breath of relief people felt when they came to the Rainbow Bus Tour a couple of weeks ago. It was simple. It was just a bus that was painted rainbow, and they gave out books that affirmed people. And yet people felt like they were actually seen at this. It is okay for you to recognize them as a person. It is okay for you to leave the town, curse the fig trees, and come back. So leave, release your anger productively. Yell at a tree if you need to. Come up with a plan. Then come back in and do the things that matter, even if there are risks. And what's supposed to happen is, and what happened is all of his people abandoned him after he did that. He got too intense, too controversial. He was left alone because too many people gave in to the cynicism. You may not want to think of I'm not asking you to go I don't know. This makes me nervous because we're supposed to not be angry. And I'm very nervous about saying, look, the scripture says for you all to go be angry at the world and do these things that can get you in trouble. That makes me very nervous, and I don't think I'm saying that, except I am and I'm not. Does that make sense? You may not want to think of yourselves as a disciple of Jesus because of all of the weird things that religion has done in his names over the millennia. But this church was founded because Jesus believed that 1, he wasn't God, and 2, that there is no hell. He believed that the world deserves better and that his religion deserves not to be trapped by those who would use it to hurt others, to make a profit, to reinforce the status quo. And he got himself killed because he dared to say that love and justice are more important than tradition. You, if you are silent, if you swallow your anger, the stones will cry out. None are free until all are free. Let's sing. I invite you to rise.
was at a meeting a few years ago where there were major protests all over the city because people were angry. And one of the leaders said, in this city we need peace, but not quiet. Go in peace, go in love. Amen.